You're listening to the Better Two podcast with DM Needham. Hi, gang. Donna here. Thanks for tuning in to the Better Two podcast. Today, my guest is Livis. She is a holistic financial independent mentor. She believes that everyone should have the opportunity to have some freedom in their life, the freedom to buy what they want, live the life that they want, travel like they want, and not be so stressed about money. She talks to us about our relationship with money and how we need to change it in some cases, and how subconsciously we still hold on to generational things as well as things that were said to us in the past that we haven't let go, that kind of block us from the future and the possibility of what we could have. Intuition also is a big part of our conversation. And we also do get into very briefly 9/11, because she was across the river in New Jersey when it all went down. So we talk about her experience with that. But we also talk about her website, Dare to Change Life. It's her business program, and she talks about her 4 pillars on financial freedom and how to create them. So I hope you find it a fascinating conversation and get something from it, and maybe even a step towards your own financial freedom. Hey, Millen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me, Donna. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, you have an interesting story. You're located currently in Florida, correct?
At the moment, yes.
So it's nice and warm down there still.
It is.
Although for us, we've had the 30-degree nights, and today we're having a 70-degree day. So, our weather's at that point where it's just going all over the place. So you used to have a Wall Street job, correct?
Yes.
What did you do on Wall Street?
I started as an IT consultant for Merrill Lynch, and then so I work for different companies. Work for American Express, Winter Bank Trust, blah blah blah. And my last role was I was managing data modelers for trading floor.
And how stressful was that?
Sorry?
Well, it was pretty stressful, wasn't it?
It was very stressful. Not only the job itself was stressful, the politics, the corporate politics, the commute, because I was living in Central Jersey, so commute was about 1.5 hours one way. So the combination of some kind of very demanding job, commute, and like I said, corporate politics was eventually got to me. So that's why at some point I decided that I don't want to go back to corporate.
I understand. I think a lot of people, they look at getting into management and thinking, oh, it's going to be a great thing. It'll be a fantastic thing. But you don't realize the corporate politics. It's there's a lot of controlling going on.
Yes.
Where you think, oh, I can be the supervisor that can make change. It's not really the case.
Yeah, and it's it's still kind of man's world, right? Number one, especially on Wall Street. And also, I actually went to the Wharton Business School, because my manager said, you need to get good education in this country, because I'm originally from Lithuania. And so I have a master's degree in physics, but not here. So I went to the Wharton Business School, graduated with the MBA, and that's when it was like everybody expected that I will go back and continue climbing the corporate ladder. And I just made a very different decision and never looked back.
And that's the thing, being a woman, as you were saying about the glass ceiling, I mean, when I was a claims supervisor, my boss during my review one day says, I have a book for you. He's like, but I'm not sure if I should give it to you or not. And I'm thinking to myself, well, firstly, if you're thinking you're not sure if you should give it to me, maybe you shouldn't, that would be the obvious thing. But I'm like, no, go ahead. And I know I've never read it, so I'm not knocking the book. It was just the context of what was on the book. And on the cover, the title of the book is Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. And I thought to myself, and I'm not knocking the book, so please understand anybody listening that has read it, I'm not knocking it. But in the context for me, it was just kind of like, I don't want to be a shark. I like who I am. I don't want to change to become somebody in a political environment that I don't really want to be. You know, and my husband was always like, you can be the claims manager. I'm like, I don't want to be the claims manager. And that goes very much to what you're saying, though, you know, in your write-up that you sent me. The stress factor of being at a job that is soul sucking and takes a lot out of you. There's no joy in life, and you start sacrificing, and your relationships start to suffer.
Which, you know, I like, yeah, a very good point that you brought up. And I like to make a distinction between compromise and sacrifice. In life, we have to compromise, right? You know, we compromise on what we want to do, what we have to do, especially if you have a family, you have kids. So especially women, we compromise a lot. But when you compromise on your core values, that's a sacrifice. And I don't want to live my life thinking that I sacrifice my life, because when you sacrifice, when you compromise on your core values, it always hits back to you. It comes back to you in some way or another. I know that some women marry wealthy men just because they want to have more money in their lives. Maybe they suffered, and you know, they basically it's a kind of like a money marriage. It always comes back and bites them, always. If you go into career just for money, if you don't really care for your clients, you don't really care what value you add at your work, it will come back and bite you. So my message, if out of many that I would like to share with your audience today, is that you may need to compromise in life. That's part of life, and it's wise sometimes, but never compromise on your core values.
Right. I mean, when I got into insurance, I did it because, well, it was an interesting job, and I worked in mail file, and I worked my way up to becoming that supervisor. And I love the fact that I could do investigations. I love the fact that there was some, you know, you could find fraud. There's a lot of different aspects that I liked about the job. But when you move into management, the political aspect starts. And that's where the job doesn't become fun, and you become stressed. And once you hit that point, once you hit that stress level, that's when the compromise is over and you're sacrificing.
Yes.
And I think there's too many of us, especially women, when they think, I'm not saying you can't do it all. I'm not saying that at all. But when we try to do it all, and this touches on something that a podcast that I actually released today. When we can't do it all, and we are still chained to the idea of perfection, of the ideal cookie cutter life, then we really start beating ourselves up and sacrificing even more of ourselves and our peace and our passion.
And judging, and basically just feeling, often women feel guilty, feel obligated, and that leads to dissatisfaction in life. And like, what's for? Like, what is it for? So lately, I'm very discerning in terms of what I'm willing to put my energy into in my time. And that includes my work hours, work time, what people I want to work with, what kind of free time I want to spend. And I don't want to have stress in my life when I can control it. You know, sometimes we can't control stress, right? So life happens, like if you have a sickness, if some of your loved ones is sick, so this is something that it's hard to not to kind of be in control, but you still can. But what we can always control is how we respond to a certain situation. Like you just described conversation with your boss, I guess ex-boss, right? And yeah. You had the choice how to respond. You could just submit to his expectations of you and try to fit into this box that most people have when they work for corporate. Or you could say, you know what, I don't want to change what I like about myself. I don't, I have my own, what I call natural design, and I want to live my life according to what works for me and what my soul desire. So that's a personal choice. But it's good that we have this choice.
This is true.
Many people don't realize that the choice is there available.
This is very true. And, a side note about the shark there. So there was a lady that worked with me who she became my superior at a point. And I remember the day she got promoted, my boss before, before she got promoted, he tells me she's getting promoted and he's like, so what do you think? I'm like, well, I said, personally, I think she plays favorites and she's not going to be the person you think she is. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Okay. So I think it was about 6 months later, I left. Now, mind you, she was the shark. She was the one that she had every hair in place. She spritzed Evian on her face all day long and everything had to be perfect. If she couldn't fire an employee, she'd stick them in your unit so you would fire them because she didn't want that on her hands. So fast forward, I'm gone out of the company and everything. And I find out through the grapevine, because once you're in corporate America, you still have friends that are in corporate America, that apparently her pet, as I used to say, really didn't do her job and she had covered for her. And when the pet quit, she ended up getting busted and she walked out. And I just said, I told my friend, I'm like, well, I told him all that. I told him it was all going to play out that way, but he wanted the shark. The shark was just fancy dressed.
You have to have certain qualities to want to be a manager in this kind of environment, to want to be a politician in this kind of environment. So I remember I was at the podcast the other day, and it was like rapid questions that the guy asked, and one of the questions was, "What kind of profession you would never ever consider as a politician?"
Yeah. But and the thing is, I think that's where we don't realize that if you're looking to get into management, you are basically becoming a politician. It may not be the world politician that is on TV, but with the politics in office, you're being controlled and being told what to do, even though you may not agree. So
it's not for everyone. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, best way to say it. So you went to school. Now you were in a marriage were you married at that point when you went to school, or did you decide to end your marriage before you went to school?
I ended marriage before I went to school. I don't think, I felt so numb when in my first marriage that I felt like I had a void inside, and I didn't know how to handle it. Was unhappy. I was felt very unfulfilled, and I ended up becoming a shopaholic. It was shopping therapy that I got involved into, and I didn't realize what was happening with me. And then at some point, I remember sitting at work and looking at my computer, and I was like, do you see yourself living that life for another 10, 20 years? And I was like, no way. So where do I start? I started with my marriage because it was not working for a long time. He was too busy building the company, working. He also worked as an IT consultant. He was too busy for having a family. So I felt very lonely and was raising my daughter primarily by myself. Occasionally he was home. So I said, you know what? I was in my mid-40s, I think. And I said, I'm out of here. I cannot do this anymore. I cannot live this superficial life anymore. So yeah, I left, and I was planning to continue working on Wall Street because I wanted to pay for my expensive Wharton Business School. And so I asked them if I could work part-time and go and study And at first they said yes, and then at the last moment they said, you know what, you have to choose. You either work here or you go there. It was just like that. And it was a tough choice because obviously income was important at this time for me. I was like, oh gosh, I relied on this income. And so I trust my intuition. And I said, I made the decision to go to the Wharton Business School. Now I have to make this decision right. And I resigned. And I resigned, I believe it was end of May, beginning of June. I don't remember exactly the date of 2001. If I didn't resign, I would be there on 9/11.
Wow.
And instead, I was watching the horror unfolding across the river, because at that time, when I moved out of my house, I was living in Hoboken, New Jersey, across the river from downtown Manhattan. So I saw the towers fallen, and that's where I used to work. That's where was my office. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know why I was saved. But from this point on, I will always, always, always trust my intuition.
As you should.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty powerful moment to realize that had I made a different choice, I might not be here. And I think that's something that we don't always listen to our intuition, because it's like, well, how do I know it's right? Well, if something's pushing you that hard, then you need to listen. There's no questioning it. No questioning it at all. Yeah. And it can be something as simple as going down the freeway. And I was going down the freeway one day to my job, which I had that hour commute you were talking about when I lived out in the suburbs and worked in Chicago. And I was going along pretty fast, and I was coming around a curve. And before I hit that curve, I heard the voice say, slow down. And I'm just like, yeah, and it's like, slow down. And I did. And as I came around the curve, traffic was at a dead stop. I don't know if I would have been killed. I don't know who I would have killed, and I mean, around here, people drive 70 miles an hour. Now it's even higher than that, but people drive, quick. So you always have to try to listen to it when you can. When it's there, you listen. So I'm sure that impacted you for a while after that. I mean, did you still have friends that were in the towers at the time?
Yes, my ex-husband also used to work there. And, I left, but we were not like enemies, because it was kind of amicable divorce. So I tried to call him. He would not answer. I was sure he was there. I tried to call my friends. They would not answer. I was like, I guess this is it. And then I started receiving calls from some people, not from all who I called. Yeah. Like, for example, my ex, he just overslept this morning.
Wow.
Which doesn't happen often to him. So he was just late. He was just late to the horror. And some of my friends were just sick, just had a flu or something like that. Like, my girlfriend was not there that day. I was like, I can't believe that. But not everyone was that lucky.
No. It's still something that, it's something you'll never forget. Something that none of us will ever forget. But that's not what we came to talk about. And I'm sorry we went there with you, because I know that's hard. So you went to Wharton, you finished, you graduated, and then what did you decide at that point that possessed you to get down to Florida?
Well, that's a long journey from when I graduated to moving to Florida. I was expected to go back to corporate. So my agents, they were like bombarding me with applications and stuff like that, because it's a very valuable degree, obviously. And it was not easy. And that was the moment because when I went to Wharton, I didn't know why I was going there. I was like, okay, everybody says it's a good idea, so why not? But then I because I was living on my own, I had more time. My daughter was in college by then, and I had time for myself. And I finally asked myself, what do you really want? And the answer was freedom. And I can tell you that nobody who has desire to be free would go back to work for corporate. So I said, okay, so you want to be free, but how can you get there? And the answer was, you have to develop multiple streams of income. You have to become financially independent, right? Financial independence assumes that you don't depend on any man supporting you, on any boss telling you what to do and agreeing with him. You financially independent, and the way to financial independence is to develop multiple sources of income and multiple streams of income from each source. And I was like, okay, but how can I do that? You know, all my life I was just working for corporations. I had no idea. So I started researching, and I was at that time I was already investing in the stock market, but the income from my dividend paying stocks was not enough for me to pay for myself. So I said, real estate, I have to learn how to invest successfully in real estate. So I started following some investors, very successful investors in the States, and founded my company, had a team. We started investing in real estate, had the business partners who invested with me. It was great because I was basically doing the work and they put in money. It worked for all of us. And then 2008 happened. Yeah. And when 2008 happened, everything started dominoes started to fall. My business partners asked to get money back and I couldn't. I was saying that we're upside down. We should not sell right now. It would be a huge mistake. And but at the same time, I felt like, okay, they put in money. I should really give them back when they demand it. So it was tough. And then emotionally it was tough too, because after my divorce, all the friends took his side because I was the one who broke the agreement, whatever. My family was very unhappy with me because they felt that, the guy was a good provider. He didn't beat you up. He didn't drink. Like, who do you think you are? Something like that. So I was very lonely. And when, all this started, all this financial drama started unfolding, I felt really emotionally broken. Like I was lost. I felt ashamed. I felt guilty. It was horrible. And, I had to let go of my team because I ran out of money. It was a moment when I couldn't pay my rent. So just imagine from flying high, living my American dream, and then just really dropping really low. So I got to the point that I remember very clearly. It was Valentine's Day 2008. My divorce was finalized. My business was in pieces, and I was in pieces too. So I started thinking that I'm such a failure. What's the point to continue living? And so I was like not sleeping, not eating. And then one day I was walking on the street and I met my neighbor who was, I guess, attentive. We started talking. She noticed that something was really wrong with me. And she said, I want you to talk to this guy. And I said, yeah, give me his card. And she said, no, he will call you. So he called me because she knew that I was in a state that I was hiding from people. I was so ashamed, like I'm basically, I felt like I'm a failure. It was written on my forehead. I didn't want to meet my classmates. I didn't want to talk to anyone. So anyhow, so the guy called me and he was a life coach. And I kept saying, I'm such a failure. I'm beyond repair. And he said a couple of really profound things that now I realize how profound they were. He said, first of all, failure is not a person. It's an experience. It's an event. An event has the beginning and the end. I said, really? It will end? It can end? He said, absolutely. So that was first thing. And then he said, I think you should work with me. And I was like, I can afford you. And he said, oh, my darling, you cannot afford not to work with me. And I trusted him. And I started working with him. I started feeling better. I started functioning again. I managed to make really good investments at that time. And within a few years, I became financially independent. And then I said, okay, so what do you plan to do now? It's like I had this dialogue with myself. And I realized that I was pregnant with the information that I accumulated during this transition. I was going through this transition for some time, and it was just like I really wanted to like write. And I'm not a writer. I was trained as a scientist. So for me to think about writing books was so weird. But I was like, again, intuition. I was like, no, I need to write. I need to give birth to this kind of drive that was within me. That's how my books were written. The first was A Shift Toward Purpose, Secrets to an Amazing Career, about my transition from being very, very corporate woman to being very, very independent. I became a yoga instructor. I became a meditation instructor. I got deeply rooted in spiritual principles, even though I was not raised as a religious person. During this lonely time, when I didn't have anyone else, and I intuitively reached out to this high intelligence, loving intelligence, or intelligent love, or God, whatever name people use for it. And I started meditating. So I wrote about my transition in this first book. And I wrote that, frankly, my intention was to write this for women who might be going through similar transitions. So they will like, not like 300 pages books. I wanted them to feel inspired and to see possibilities. And then the next book was A Shift Toward Abundance, Secrets to Financial Freedom, where I talk about duality of money, duality of wealth, because it has, money has spiritual aspect, and it has practical kind of down-to-earth aspect in it, right? And so I wrote about that and how my perception shifted in terms of money. Like before, I felt like it's hard to get, I have to chase money, and how all my transition brought me to the point where I felt money is my friend. It has my back. So friend is not someone that you chase. Friend is someone who you feel connection to, who you feel aligned with, comes to you. You see, change in perception, and things started happening in my life. And so eventually I became financially independent. Like I said, I wrote books after I became financially independent. And then I said, what am I doing in New Jersey? Like I really, all my life, my dream was to walk on a beach. And I never lived by the beach before. So that's when I started thinking, I started drawing like my goal, my vision, how I would like to live my life, what kind of lifestyle I would like to have. And then at some point I was on vacation with one of my girlfriends in Martinique, which is a French island. And I used to be a tennis player, like very, very diligent. I love tennis. And that's where I met a guy. He happened to be from France. And, I never expected that something would happen. And he started flying from France, visiting me. And at some point, he was deported. He was stopped here in the States and deported because they said, you're flying so often to the US, you must be working here. And he was not working. He was visiting his girlfriend. So, and that's when I didn't have a choice. I called him and I was like, listen, I have a question. Would you marry me? He's like, oh my God, I thought you will never, ever, we will never have this conversation, because he knew that I was very anti-marriage after my divorce. It was very painful. So we never had, like, when he would start talking about this, I was like, we're not discussing the M word. And here I was, because it was the only way for us to be together. But he could not come to the States, so I had to fly to France, and we got married in France. And we had to find a place to live there, because he was also divorced with 2 kids. So we only had enough money to pay for down payment for the very, very rundown house in the south of France, in Provence. And we started renovating this house by ourselves. It was quite an interesting experience, fun, challenging, but fun, you know. And now we really created this beautiful villa in Provence. But you know, it's funny how things happen. Now I live in two countries. We live in France and we live in south of Florida. But it started from something very challenging and very kind of uncomfortable. So sometimes we have to leave the good to get to the great, right? So I could just say, I don't want to ever get married. It's complicated. He is deported, because we had to go through a lot of legal stuff to get him back. Yeah. But I'm not a stranger to challenges. I don't avoid them. I face them. I face the fear, and I do what I have to do. That's my love story. That's my love story.
Nothing wrong with that. I find it fascinating that you were a physics major. You have a master's degree in physics, but yet you pursued business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always wanted to, you know, I wanted to be a physicist since I was a little girl. I don't know, maybe I was 6 or 8, I think 6. And the reason for this, I remember that I wanted to understand how the world works. Like, why this, how electricity, how, you know, eventually I wanted to study nuclear physics. So I have a very curious mind always. But business I was always curious as well. Like when my first job, my not professional job when we came to the States from Lithuania I was a florist assistant, because I didn't speak English when we came, right? Doesn't matter how experienced or educated you are when you don't speak the language. So my first job was IT consultant. And I wanted to learn how to invest in the stock market. Like I said, I have a very curious mind. But at some point, I really was drawn to business and also psychology. So before I went to the Wharton Business School, I was thinking like, do I want to get PhD in psychology or business? Because I wanted both. You know, mm-hmm. For me, I don't like to choose between things that I like. Like, you know, it's for me, it's not. I would not say never, but usually it's not either or. It's this and this. So I decided to start with business, and then I said, you know, if I decide to go back to study psychology, I can. But then right now in my work, I actually combine this, because I'm studying metaphysics. I follow several spiritual mentors. And some of my clients, they stop seeing psychologists because they feel that what they receive is enough, because I'm also energy healer. They receive something that I think is enough for them to feel better about themselves, about their lives, and they stop seeing their therapist. And I was like, I could never imagine that it could happen in my life. But you see, every time we have intentions, somehow they will realize. So be very mindful, like, what is it that you really want? What is it that you focus on? Since very early stages in our life in the States, I remember that I always focused on what I appreciated in our life, what I was grateful for. Like, yeah, we had the problems, but I would always kind of intuitively switch to, yeah, but we also have this, and this. And I think that's what kind of pulled me through some really challenging times that we had.
Let me ask you this: being a physicist, how does that play out with being a metaphysical person? I mean, because some people would say that the metaphysics is more of and I'm not one of them because I do read cards and whatnot, But some people would say, well, that's just hooey. That's just make believe. It's not anything that's important. Where a physicist, that's something tangible, that's scientific. And I understand that there's a correlation. I get that. I understand that. But some people don't. So how would you explain that to somebody that would be that naysayer, that negative person going, well, I don't believe this, but you're a scientist. So how would you explain those two?
For me, I absolutely love metaphysics, and like I said, I follow one of my favorite mentors, and unfortunately he is not alive anymore, is Dr. David Hawkins. You can see his book in the back. Oh, maybe not here. It's in a higher shelf. It's called Power versus Force. And he also created Map of Consciousness, etc. So for me, some metaphysical phenomena that some people experience is just some law that we don't have a formula for in our science that is available to us right now. So it's just a matter of time. But I think that there are certain things that current, and we have great advances in science, obviously, right now, especially in physics. But there are certain things that we just don't have formula for. Like Stephen Hawking, the famous scientist, physicist, his intention was to create a formula that explains everything, right? So it's interesting how some controversial things eventually become like, that's how it works. So again, I believe that certain aspects of metaphysics are just something that in our current level of scientific understanding, we just don't have explanation for.
Well, there is the talk that when the Hadron Collider was fired up, that it created this thing called the Mandela Effect. Have you heard of this? Now, I'm not going to dispute it. I'm not going to agree with it, but it is interesting because there are certain things I do remember that other people don't. Now, why is that? Who knows? Because we remember things differently, maybe. Who knows? But it's an interesting thing that with each scientific development, we can alter things slightly. And the power of the mouth, the thought, the word, it's very powerful to manifest things. And I don't think people realize that enough.
I agree with you. That's why I'm very sensitive to words. When I work with my copywriter, when we create like some campaign and stuff like that, right away I say, I don't use word need. I have like a list of words that I don't like to use. Entitlement, things like that. I just don't want to use these words because for me, they have a very low vibrational frequency. And I feel that very sensitive. So when I speak with my clients, when I write something, I'm choosing the words very mindfully because I know how powerful they can be, especially if you use these words when you talk to yourself, because your subconscious mind is listening very carefully. And that's what you're planting in your subconscious mind. That's why behind me, I have I don't know, let me show you. I have this saying that I like. I need nothing, I appreciate everything.
Nice.
It's a good reminder for me. So yeah, that's how I.
It's a powerful statement. And, I wanted to circle back since we're talking about words and everything. It's amazing when you look at if you look at the word money, and while there are so many different things to be attached to it, there's joy. Joy can be attached to it. But in most cases, money is the equivalent to stress, anxiety, fear. There's a lot of negative connotations to it. So how do you help your clients? Because you've been in that dark place. You've been in that place of need. You've been in that place of fear that, is this going to last forever? How do you try to push them out of that situation where they're not so wrapped up in it? And there's a second part to this, because with women, going back to the expectations of you're supposed to let the man handle everything. And I've never been that woman, but there's several women that I know that I've never, that they'll say openly, I've never touched the checkbook. I have no idea. And I always look at them and say, what happens if there was an accident tomorrow? You have no concept. So how do you take somebody that's either in that mindset or has the mindset of, how do I go on? I don't have enough money. I am a failure. I can, the shame that's attached to not having the money. How do you get past that? How do you work with your clients to get past that?
A great question. So first of all, I believe, and that's what I teach when I work with clients. I believe that money is neutral. It doesn't have the meaning. It has the meaning that you give it. I used to give meaning to the money, that it's hard to get, that it doesn't grow on trees, that I'm not meant to be wealthy, etc., etc. But it was my doing. I was giving this meaning to money. And what is beautiful is that we can choose what meaning we give. And I earlier in our discussion, I mentioned that I eventually chose to give meaning to money, that money is my friend. And we don't chase friends. Right. We just need to be aligned with who we want to be friends with, and then we just meet the right people. So that's what we work, some clients who come to me, they have a very, very, very painful relationship with money. And it goes back to maybe even generations, forget about just their parents. Your cat really likes the conversation about money.
Yes.
All right. So that's what I can say, that you can decide that I want to improve my relationship with money, because we have relationship with everything, not only with people, like we have relationship with ourselves. What kind of relationship you have with yourself? That's probably the most important relationship we have, right? And relationship with money is one of the very important relationships as well. So that's how we shift from being very negative, giving very negative connotation, negative meaning to money, to either, you start with neutral, and then you just say, I really appreciate you. How you would do this with someone who you appreciate, because ultimately it's a form of energy that you can have a relationship with. So that's the first question. The second question about women who depend on men, I really feel that the financial success is not defined by where you are right now. You can see that I was devastated. I was basically below zero, right? And I turned my life around. So financial success is not determined by where you are at the moment in your life, but it is determined by your personality traits, by your attitude. So if your attitude is, I want my man to take care of me, or whatever, my partner to take care of me, then that's what you will experience. Because at some point, it may not work that way. So at some point, like one of my girlfriends told me that her husband said, I feel like you're just a suitcase without a handle. I'm tired of it, okay? And she thought that it was a successful marriage. So it's your choice if you want to be dependent on anyone all your life. Again, I don't judge people for their choices. It's your choice, and that's the results that they will experience. For me, freedom was very important, because I believe that even in the relationship, every woman should feel independent in terms of I can make it on my own. I'm not with this person, with this partner, because I cannot stand on my own. You have to feel whole, not just half, and this partner will complete you, because prepare to be disappointed if that's the case, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's why I think it's important for women not only be whole and confident in terms of their personal life, right, but also in terms of their career, in terms of their attitude, in terms of managing finances at home. And I can tell you that several clients who came to me in a situation when they were very, very dependent on their husbands, and they weren't happy because, you know, not every man is good with managing money, by the way. Some are, some aren't. So I always say, why you don't become a financial leader in your family? Why you feel that it has to be your partner? If you want to change something, then become a leader in your own family, financial leader. Take over and, you know, share your vision, share what is important to you. Again, we're circling back to what you're not willing to compromise on. Like a couple of clients specifically who I'm thinking about, they were in a point, like they were savers, like they had money, they wanted to provide for their family, but their husbands were spenders. They would just spend, and if women would want to save, they would get some labels like, you know, you're thrifty, you're this, you that. And I was like, you don't need to depend. If you depend on his income, yeah, then you likely don't have a choice. So I said, get out of his business. He will find someone, accountant somewhere else. Go to college, get your degree, start working or start your business, start making your own money and start having your own vision, and then share this with him and see if he is on board. And if he's not on board, then you will decide if you want to stay together or not. Because the worst thing in life, in my opinion anyway, because it's, you know, it may not be the same for everyone, is to have regrets at the end of the life. I don't want to look back on my life and say, I could have, should have. I really want to be in a place where I feel like it was a hell of a ride. And yes, I took some risk, but I also got really cool rewards. And I feel that it was all worth it.
So a lot of what you're saying about money is its perception. A lot of its perception.
Yes.
So you are an instant miracle energy healer, as well as a certified NLP practitioner. So what made you decide to become an energy healer?
That's a good question. So I noticed that most coaches work on, like money coaches I'm talking about, they work on beliefs, trying to kind of logically change them, like into using logic, using evidence that your belief is wrong, and obviously it's wrong and stuff like that. And sometimes it works, but not always. And I was also looking for something that will work faster. So I know that some people use EFT. If it works for you, great. But I was looking for something that would work faster. And I know that our beliefs are stored in our subconscious mind, and subconscious mind is our body, basically, right? That's energy that we store in our body. That's how it works. And I found the technique that allows people to release the stored energy blockages. That you know, they feel it. They feel this energetic entity in their body. Like when we start talking about something, and like I said, like what kind of feeling you experience right now. It could be anger, it could be sadness, it could be grief. And I will say, where do you feel it in your body? And they can locate this feeling in the body. And then I have a process using my own body as a conduit. And I have a process of releasing this energy from their body. And it's amazing. It works fairly fast. And the results are just incredible. I had one woman who all her life suffered with, like, she would work hard, do everything right, and then something would happen and she would lose money, she would not make money. Like, it was weird stuff that every time she was supposed to be wealthy, and it will not happen. And when we started working on this deeper and deeper and deeper, because we released many stuffed beliefs that she had in her body. One of the core beliefs for her, root, like deeply anchored, was that unless she has a noble profession like doctor, because her father was a doctor, she cannot be wealthy, because her father wanted her to be a doctor, and she rebelled. She didn't want to, and she didn't realize that these words that he said many years ago was still living in her body and affecting her. Like, how can I be wealthy if I'm just an IT consultant? I'm not a doctor. You see? So it's all unconscious. It's all very deeply hidden, and it can be released. And that's why I use Instant Miracle for that.
Do you think that some of this, that subconscious, is also generational DNA stuff?
Could be, yeah.
You know,
for some people it is, yeah.
That just doesn't get resolved. I think we pass things generationally through us all the time. So you have what you call the Millionaire Method.
Yes, I have to give the thank you for this name to my coach, because he said, you know, what you do fits so perfectly into you know, this name, and basically he just suggested that I use my name for my method. So the Millionaire Method is a holistic system for becoming financially independent, and basically it was born from me reverse engineering the elements that helped me to become financially independent. And the reason I say it's a holistic system, because it has two very practical pillars and two kind of soft skills pillars that I call soft skills. So it has 4 pillars. One is you have to develop wealth mindset, because most people these days have consumer mindset, not wealth mindset. And that's what I'm working, when I work with clients, I have a program for this, how to develop wealth mindset. The second pillar is, I call it become financially savvy. You have to have practical money management skills, manage money intentionally, know where your cash flow is at the moment, know what is coming in, what is coming out, how to manage your debt, and you know, how to deal with the budget. Because some women just, like, budget is such a bad word. It's like a big B word is like a D word, like diet, you know, like nobody wants to hear about that. So I feel that it's very important for women to be kind of very clear and practical about that. So that's why I have the second pillar. It's called become financially savvy. The third pillar is, okay, so you're very savvy and you save money and it's great, but your money needs to grow. Your money needs to work for you. So savings are like seeds for your wealth, but then you need to plant the seeds so they will grow. And that's when strategic investing comes into picture. And strategic investing is approach to investing your money in a way that doesn't make you worry all the time, because you know how to manage your risk. So risk management is very important element of successful investing. And it's very different from day trading or from any trading. And some women come to me because, you know, many women feel that some people make money quick on Forex exchange or trading options or something like that. And I say, I don't teach trading, I teach investing. And so that's my third pillar, strategic investing. And the fourth pillar that we talked quite a bit about is, I call it practical spirituality, but basically it's being aware that you're not alone, that you can connect to this power within. And this ability allows you to amplify everything in your life. That's how you can turn your life around. That's how you can achieve your goals. And it's a very powerful I don't like to say word tool, but it's ability that we all have We all have this ability. We all have intuition. It's just some people pay attention to it and some people don't. Some people are aware of this and some people aren't. So that's my 4 pillars.
I've said that to many people many a times and they just don't understand. Do you think that the consumer mindset and instant gratification go hand in hand? Because is that not why we have the consumer mindset, is because we are instantly gratified now? I mean, you don't even have to leave your house now and everything can come to your door, including fast food.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And also, I think we kind of, we're getting detached from values that are priceless in our lives. Like I recently talked to someone about how to manage presents during the holidays when you have a limited budget, maybe a single mom, divorced, etc. And I said, you know what? You don't have to offer a present in the form of stuff. You can offer present in the form of your presence, because what your partner wants, what your kids want, some good time with you. So that's the difference between having consumer mindset versus having abundance mindset.
When I had my stepkids, when the very first Christmas they came to live with us, we didn't have the money to spend on Christmas presents, and at the time they didn't have the princess dresses or all the little frou-frous things. So I was like, well, what can I do? So I got some extra large men's shirts, and I got a paint kit out, and I got some glitter, and I made these wonderful shirts that they wore for years. And they got to play princess, even though they didn't get to play princess per se.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it.
And that's something that they can look back on. It is something I can look back on and say, okay, I gave them a gift from my heart. It wasn't something commercial. It was something special. It may not be perfect, but it did what it needs to do.
It's this beautiful family memories together is so much more valuable than stuff, that toys or clothes that they will forget the next day. So when I talk to my daughter, I was like, right away, I say, what experience do you want to have? So I usually try to offer some experience to her, not stuff.
Yeah. And that's important. I think experience now, that's something I've learned throughout my life, is experience sometimes is way more valuable than stuff, way more valuable. And it's something I'm finding myself, as I have a lot of stuff around my house that I don't need anymore, that I have to part with. And it definitely gives you a different mindset. It really does. So I see that you have a website that's called Dare to Change Life. What made you decide to call it that?
Because that's what I've done in my life.
Okay,
that's why I called this my business is Dare to Change Life, and that's my website.
Okay, I just didn't know why I asked is because you have the Millionaire Method. So that's why I was like, I didn't know if that's why. So you have a Facebook group. You also have a Facebook group called Wealth Building for Powerful Women, and you have a LinkedIn page, Twitter account, and Instagram, and all these links will be on the bio notes. Is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm not really using my Twitter much.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that it's clear. Yes, I would like to actually offer to your audience a very valuable gift. I believe in giving. I believe in contributing to society. I think I'm very fortunate with what I was able to accomplish in my life. And I think it's my duty to help other women to be prosperous and independent. So I would like to offer a complimentary consultation. I call it Never Worry About Money Again. It's a consultation that they can schedule at speakwithmillen.com, speakwithmillen, MILLEN.com, and we will talk about your unique pathway to financial independence, because everybody has their unique pathway there, right? Mm-hmm. So, but I really, really honestly believe that everyone has capacity to be financially independent. Not everyone will be, not everybody has to be, just like we're all parents. We all have capacity to be parents, but not everybody has to be parent. Not everybody will be parent. So, but the capacity is there. So if it's something that is important to you, you definitely can create this in your life. And that's what I do with my clients. Okay. So again, speakwithmillen.com.
Okay. You had mentioned a book earlier.
Yes, I actually have a couple of books. At the moment, because I gave away, so this is one of my books. This is called A Shift Toward Abundance. So it's available on Amazon. And the second book is A Shift Toward Purpose, also available on Amazon.
Okay. All right. Well, I thank you for your time. And, it's been a very interesting conversation. I hope it's been a good conversation for you as well.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys, for listening to the Better To podcast. Millen had a very interesting story. It did get a little somber there when we're talking about 9/11, and it's something that will stick with us forever and ever. That's never going to change. I do find it fascinating that, once again, we have a physicist who's also dealing with the metaphysics. And sometimes people, as I said in the podcast, those two shouldn't go hand in hand. But as I found out from the neuroscientists, that the scientific community actually supports some of the metaphysical principles as well. So I think it's important that you can have science as well as, dare I say, the woo-woo, and that they can go hand in hand. Also, a message that has been repeated several times over: watch what you say and think, because you can manifest it and bring it into reality. And none of us really need to do that. And I did really like what she had to say about the fact that our relationship with money should be about a friendship. It's not something we should be chasing. It's something that, we should welcome. It should be friendly. It shouldn't be something that stresses us out. And I think that's very important for all of us, because money sometimes can be just the bane of our existence. It can make us very happy, or it can make us very sad. It can make us feel, as she said, a failure. There's shame attached to it. And it shouldn't be that way. It's something that gives us, well, I don't want to say gives us life, but provides for our lives. And we will have those moments where we are down. I won't deny that. But if we can change our relationship with money and have gratitude, then that'll make it a little bit easier. So I hope you enjoyed the podcast today. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and thank you for watching and listening. It really means a lot, and I enjoyed doing this. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I guess I'll catch you next time. Bye. You are listening to the Better To podcast with DM Needham.